controversial onside kick to start overtime. Seahawks decide to go onside kick. For the record, with that defense, and you got to get a touchdown now, I wasn't against the call. I like aggressive. The kicker, Steven Hushka, kicks it. Explain what happens here.
It's a hard one to explain. Okay, first of all, recognize this in the overtime rule. If you onside kick and recover, then the receiving team is deemed to have had their opportunity. And so if you then recover and kick a field goal, you win. And that's the advantage of onside kicking in the first play of
Another
overtime.
reason I don't have a problem with it is if Pete gets that thing and gets a field goal, game over. You leave St. Louis with a W.
Game over. Now you get the signal for a fair catch. And here's what happened on the field. And you made some reference, and I want to talk about this in a second. They ruled on the field that the ball was kicked into the ground. All right, St. Louis player gave a fair catch signal, which makes it an invalid signal since they ruled it was kicked into the ground. So referee Jeff Triplett announced that fair catch signal was invalid, that St. Louis was not going to get the ball.
And you have to re-kick it.
And you were going to have to go back and re-kick. Now, replay comes, and now all of a sudden you see it's not kicked into the ground. So here comes another layer of the rule. So now, since it wasn't kicked into the ground, even though it's a short onside kick, you get the right to make a fair catch on any kickoff, short or regular. So now you have a legitimate fair catch. However, then you get him roughed on the ground after he possesses the ball. So there should have been a penalty for that. In the end, they got the element right about it at least being not kicked into the ground and St. Louis kicking the ball, but they didn't. On
the added yards on roughing the fair catch.
Right.
That explanation, Mike, is fascinating. On one play, the layers a single moment can have in this league now.
Well, you were talking to Bill Parcells, who, by the way, I must say, after that picture the next day, called my home and left me a message and apologized for the language that he used directed at me and asked me to forgive him, even though he knew that I wouldn't, but I did. But I thought that was interesting. But you mentioned to him, are the rules getting too complicated? And is it hard as a fan to watch it? Is it hard as an official to officiate them? And it is.
For me as a viewer, I watched Oklahoma-Tennessee this week, and I was completely confused on a pass interference call.
But you take this play. The onside kick in St. Louis, and I'm going to tell you something. Jeff Triplett and his crew, how did they arrive at this? How did they get from the ball being kicked into the ground, which they didn't expect, to have it not being kicked into the ground? You know those communication systems that you see officials wearing now where he's got the microphone on and the headset? Things have become so complicated that they're not going to admit this, but somebody got into Jeff Triplett's ear from the press box and said, Jeff, that ball wasn't kicked into the ground. Then he changed it based on that information. That information is coming from the replay official who sees the play, even though it's not reviewable. They and colleges are doing the same thing now. You don't have just the 7 people on the field. You have an 8th person in the NFL when you count the replay guy, or even New York looking in and watching from New York with communication to the stadium, or in the college, a 9th, because you have 8 guys on the field and a replay official upstairs. So it's become so much more complicated that this communication system is being used to get things right, which I'm actually okay with.